so many ideas. I want to be sure that the room has time to ask questions, but I did have a couple of follow-ups. But it's hard to know where to go first. I would like to go to you, Tini, though, because I'm thinking about the nature of the work that you do. Required a lot of perseverance, I would think. Can you help us understand where do you get? I mean, I think the nature of all of your work, we're hearing you when you've gotten to a certain point and it's all been really quite successful, but there's a huge startup period. But I also think that for you, that there's the ongoing emotional challenge of working with a particular group you're with. Where do you find your strength to persevere?
Well, I think. No. I'm crazy. That's really what I've been told. I'm a little mad, and I think you do have to be a little mad to do some of the things I do. I don't follow rules very well, which is why I'm perfect for NGO. God, you know what? Honestly, I'm just very privileged in a lot of ways and very lucky. I grew up in a family that had a lot of, it was just a lot of use. We were allowed to use our imagination. We were allowed to be children. I was also one of those kids who was ADHD, dyslexia, who had a really hard time in school and was told that I had two choices, be a factory worker or study harder. And I have a double doctorate degree. But the point is, because I think it was two. One, I was rebellious. I wanted to prove a point that I could be a hell of a lot more than a factory worker. And because I didn't want children, any child, to go through what I went through in school, and to also have the kind of childhood I had. I mean, maybe I had supportive families, but there were lots of other ways in which you could support a child that had been marginalized and were in a difficult position. So I think that's definitely a passion of mine. The other thing was with responsibility, with privilege comes responsibility, and this is something I learned from very young. Everything is not free. You have to work hard to get where you are, but you're in a position, the 150 people here, you're privileged. There are so many people out there, there's so many children and young ones who will never have that opportunity you have, ever. And I think that I really had this instilled in me from very young, that because I had the privilege of going to school, going to university, getting scholarships, etc., that there was a responsibility to make sure that I gave back. And how I gave back, I wasn't sure. I knew it was children. But like I said, I didn't really know till I came back 20 years later that it was going to be in Malaysia. And that's the humbleness in it all, in all of it. But it is. I think I just cannot. I pick up the children. It's not a policy thing. I do the rescues. I pick up the children. I go to the police station. I fight with the system that may or may not protect the child. I create the systems and advocate with this and that. Because every time I don't, I lose a child. And for me, that's one less child that could do a lot more and to contribute a lot more to Malaysia. So yeah, that's one.
So the ongoing theme, find the passion and channel it. Yeah. I have a question for you, Dzameer. You obviously have the passion and you had the idea, but how did you get from the passion and the idea to the action, to where you are today? I mean, did you have a 3-inch thick strategic plan for this, or did you go with the flow? I mean, what happened with you?
It wasn't 3-inch because as a consultant you have to get it down to a very concise plan. But the idea wasn't new. It started off in America about 20 years ago. It started off in the UK 8 years, and now there's about 23 other countries that are doing it. So it's stolen shamelessly. Right? Steal ideas. Right? Yeah. Steal ideas, guys. What works, try it out, see if it does, right? Recruit the best talent, train them for 2 months, put them in the most difficult schools for 2 years, and build an alumni movement. Simple. That's what we thought, right? Wow. But when we came up to starting it up, right, we didn't say like we had a plan. But what we found is, once you have a plan, that's a really good thing. You already have structured in your thoughts what to do. But when you start doing it, that plan is completely useless.
Yeah.
That plan will change and will constantly move around, but always drive by outcomes. What do you want to get out? And when I talk about purpose, that's purpose in a big picture vision. Now you need to move it down to a mission. What is your mission? And your mission is very clear so that you don't get distracted by so many different other things. So you stay very clear. We met funders so many times, and like Howard Schultz also 231 rejections. We probably had about 61 before someone gave us money. And from there also, it was really like some people wanted to give us money, but they wanted to change the program, have it as an after school. We said, no, 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 no. This is going to be full-time embedded into the school system. We're going to be right there with other teachers working collaboratively to change this child's life. So plans are important, but realize that you won't need it as soon as you've written it.
Okay, good. Joyce, a question for you, Joyce. In your experience of working with Malaysians who are coming back, having had these great experience elsewhere with this abundance of choice overseas, what really brings them back? What's the driver, or what's the appeal, what's the pull or the attraction that brings them back to Malaysia?
So there may be a couple of different things that I can think of. I think firstly, and this is probably true of many people, one of the biggest drivers of people coming home is family. So family and just this connection that you have to a place that you grew up in. So that's something that you would eventually come back. And I think a lot of people whom I know who are overseas right now and who have been overseas for like decades, they will eventually come back. I think it's just a question of when. But I think when we're trying to change the equation for people who are on the Otak-Otak program. So we're just, we're telling them that family doesn't have to be the only reason to come back. I think what we realized was that there's really an information asymmetry when it comes to people who are living overseas. When I was overseas, I was part of an organization called the Malaysia Forum, which is almost like UKC, except that in the sense that it reaches mostly to US students, US diaspora, who are Malaysian originally, and it really talks about current issues. So, my experiences with those people there really shows me that, a lot of the times people don't know what's going on in Malaysia, and what you hear in the press and kind of like the Wall Street Journal, like Forbes, like whatever, I think it tends to sound a lot more negative than it actually is on the ground. And coming back, I think we found that there was such a great community of people here who were really thinking about kind of giving back. And when we found that, then it was kind of like, well, how did we ever think about not coming back? How was that ever even a possibility? Because I think like Kate said, the food's awesome. Malaysia is like, the sun's always out, your family is here. And there's so much, I think, great potential. And I think potential is maybe the third thing that brings people back, right? A lot of people I know, for example, I'll just tell you a bit about a really good friend of mine, who's probably one of the smartest, literally the smartest people I know. And I'm gonna tell you his degrees, even though it sounds a bit pretentious, because it's really great. So he graduated from the school in Malacca High at 17, got into MIT with his SPM results, accelerated, did a 3-year computer science and engineering program, went to Princeton to do his master's, was at Harvard for his PhD, went to Goldman Sachs for 4 years. And guess what he's doing now? He's coming back home to Malaysia. He's been back for the past 2 months, and he wants to start a school. He wants to start a school reaching out to people like himself. And it's amazing. And just talking to him, he's probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. And I went to a lot of really good schools and met a lot of really great, fantastic people. And this guy has given it all up to say, I'm coming back to Malaysia. And when I asked him, is this a sacrifice for you? He said, no, it's not. It's not, because at the end of the day, all of this was a preparation for coming back. It was really just an idea that he had, and he's coming back now because he says that he wants to reach out to people like himself who are, very, very gifted and who may not have been able to make it in this system. So he wants to change that system, and I think, Shenjin, his name is Shenjin, really, really cool guy. Yeah, we're gonna introduce him to everyone on this panel because I think they're already interested. Yes. So I think that there really is a lot of potential, and one of the great things about coming back to Malaysia, and one of the reasons why I came back is because I said, look, I went to Yale University. In the States, Yale grads, Yale grads are like a dime a dozen. I'm sorry, Kate. Kate's a Yale alum as well. But it's kind of like... Exactly. So, when you come back to Malaysia, you are really, you stand out. And there's a lot of systems here that are not available in the States. That are available in the States. There are lots of gaps here that do not exist in the States. So when you come back here, the amount of effort that you put in, the outcome, the impact is that much bigger. just because there's so few people here who are thinking about it, there's so few people who are actually driving and running it. So I really think that, you know, coming back here, one of the reasons why I came back was the amount of potential that you have to make an impact. A small amount of effort goes a really, really long way. Like this Otak-Otak program thing is reached out to, like, you know, hundreds of kids over the past we've only done it for 2 years now. And all of us were working full-time jobs, like myself, Hansen, Anand, we're all working full-time jobs. And yet, you know, in our after work hours, we're able to make that much of a difference to people's lives. Simply because, you know, I don't know, maybe because of the lack of structure, the lack of systems that exist here, you know, no companies really have thought about a structured internship program except several MNCs. So, you know, the kind of impact that you can make with a small amount of effort is really amazing. I think that's one of the reasons why people come back. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have 15 minutes. I'd love to hear from you. What advice would you give to these folks as they think about what it is they're going to be doing in the future? What have you learned from starting out in a business like this?
Well, first of all, I'm not in a business. I work for the government, actually. But I think when I speak to students, usually it's very good, you know, for students to have the bigger picture. You know, I told Chris that I learned from a Indonesian billionaire this new phrase, you know, think big, start small, move fast. So basically, you know, it's very important actually, and I think that's really the ethos of my life in the way I do things. I've always realized that a lot of Malaysian students, they don't really think big, meaning that at a very young age, because of the limited resources available in this country, you know, for example, I've always realized that our newspapers are useless. You know, we don't really have good institutions. So it's not that you're not smart, it's just that you don't have the resources in this country. So at a young age, very rarely do you find young people who knew good organizations to work with when they start a career. For example, not many people have heard of Goldman Sachs, you know, McKinsey's, BCG. So if you know, people always say aim for the stars, right? Maybe you'll fall for the moon or something like that. But the reality is, a lot of Malaysians don't realize what are the real stars out there. And the reasons why you don't realize, because you don't have the resources. So I'm telling you this now because you are still early in this whole career and this whole journey in your life. You should start discovering what are those stars out there. You know, not only just these NGOs that we have here, you know, clubs and whatnot, but the real big things in life. Once you know these stars, these organizations that you are aiming, then you have a purpose. Then you start small, you see. I remember when Dzameer came to me with Kiran on Teach for Malaysia, you know, they did this whole paperwork thing, right? It was really amazing, you know. You can see a difference between those who really wants to do something. Now, I'm very particular, you know, I get a lot of young Malaysians, especially university students, they come to me, you know, they give a paperwork, they ask for sponsorship, you know, they want to do this, and they want to do some programs in universities. My advice is for a lot of these university students to start small, meaning that, you know, you may want to do like a big economic conference, a big political conference or whatever in your university, but sometimes you are put off by the fact that you don't have money, or you are put off by the fact that you don't have friends who wants to support you. Actually, it does not matter. You know, you should be inspired by people like Dzameer or Joyce. You know, really, when they started, there was no one. You know, even people like me, you know, I was like, oh, you know, I don't have time like Dzameer to help you. You know, I'm so busy. So first you have to think big, but you start small. But the key part is to move fast. Okay, you have to move really fast. I like to think that I move very fast. I like to think that I sleep very little as well. And that's life. You see, in life, you have to decide. Okay, you are very young, and you must make the decision now. You can decide to have a life whereby you go to work at 9, come home at 5, have roti canai or goreng pisang at 6 with your family, and go to sleep at 10. That's one option. The other option is, like Joyce said, you see, where by the time you finish work, you go for another meeting where you do your own things to make a difference in the society. Now, people like Joyce and Dzameer, Kieran, Talk, they made the other choice. You see, the reality is there are many, many other friends of ours who made the first choice. You see, it's okay, they become millionaires as well. You see, it's fine, but that is life. You see, and in life there are choices. You can't really have everything in life. So my real advice to young people, students, is that you really need to know what you want. You see, and for you to know what you want, you need to actually discover. When we talk about universities like MIT, Princeton, Yale, Columbia, I'll be quite honest, when I was in school, I came from, not so bad of a school. I came from Sekolah Agama Sweetman Kijang. It was a boarding school. It was supposed to be like one of the better schools in Malaysia. And I didn't know about all these great universities. So my point is, sometimes for you to know that there are greater things in life, it makes you aim much further. And unless you know that the universe is so big, then your dream will only get bigger. You see, that's very important. And that is why these kind of meetings, you meet people. I'm always very thankful to God that one thing great about my life is I have all the smartest people, all of them smarter than me, working with me in all the things I do. Talk, for example, right?